Shawn, welcome to the channel. We're back in here with another album review, and today we have Joyner Lucas. 508, 507, 22, you know what, cut your boy some slack. And I gotta be honest with you, I was very intimidated going into this project because there were so many people telling me that this was the greatest album of the year. There were people telling me that Joyner Lucas is the best rapper alive. He's top 5, top 10. And although I have listened to Joyner in the past, I really didn't have a reason to really think that this project would be great, especially given his verse on Mask On, the remix of Future song Mask Off. Although his verse was incredibly fast, it was incredibly powerful, and it showed him as a rapper, showcased his skill as a rapper. He didn't say anything. Joyner's verse on Mask On was the equivalent of a rapper talking a lot but saying nothing. So I was incredibly afraid going into this project, kind of thinking that I was going to find something in here that was going to turn me off. To my pleasant surprise, I didn't find as much as I thought I would that would turn me off with this album. Now thematically, I don't really know how the actual number ties into the album itself. I know that we get, you know, a bunch of voicemails at the end of these songs to kind of represent each point that Joyner is in his life at that point. But there are some tracks where you don't actually get a voicemail at all, and then there are some tracks where it feels like the voicemail is just thrown on there to keep up with the theme of the album. I like how the theme of the album does tie into the voicemails, but I don't think it's that substantial to the point where you couldn't listen to this album without the voicemails. So let me start this thing off by saying, if you are a Joyner Lucas fan and you do like real rap, like where people actually have to rap the whole song, you're gonna love this project. If you're a little indifferent towards Joyner Lucas, you don't really know about him, you're kind of on the fence, I would still tell you to check it out because there are a lot of songs on here that you may actually want to bump. Joyner does have this endearing quality about his music that shows how hungry he is. So it is an endearing quality, and you do like that before you even start getting into the deep aspects of the album. But the very intro, it starts off like a Big Shawn record. Get the fuck off my dick, ho! Sounds very similar to ho, shut the fuck up. I do think that the simple beat in the background puts a lot of enthusiasm or a lot of attention on Joyner Lucas's voice himself, so you pretty much have nothing else to pay attention to but Joyner himself, where he is rapping really fast and he's giving you a lot of substantial bars and some metaphors here and there. I think it's a decent track when it comes to giving Joyner Lucas's perspective on how he views the world and how he views the industry and other rappers. And he does so much on this track when it comes to looking at other people that he even gives the awful hook, unfortunately, of being able to see through you like an ultrasound. Nah. Like I said, his voice is so hungry. You can tell how driven he is. You can tell how much he wants this, because clearly he's in the position. At the beginning of the track, we get this intro voicemail from, I'm guessing, a girl that he's having an issue with. Maybe this is the mother of his child. But from what I saw in the music video, Joyner Lucas appears to already be in the position he's at right now. So I don't know if this is before he got in a good position or after. The voicemail in the beginning tells one story, but music video tells another. Lovely is very admirable as a song. It is. And I think the length of this song will turn you off. It turned me off. Much like a lot of the tracks on this album, they have a very lengthy period of time where Joyner Lucas isn't actually saying anything, and it's kind of like the instrumental is playing this gymnastics game, and then we get a voicemail at the end of the track. That's kind of how a lot of these songs go. But Lovely is a track on there where it's pretty much about loving your life in spite of. One track on here that I love, it felt like Joyner Lucas was literally talking to me, was when he said, thinking how these rappers get rich while I'm eating TV dinner. You know, the ones with the meat in them. Pause. I was so happy when he said pause. You guys know how in love with that word I am. Fuck You Mean is another track on here that sounds good. I like the bass, I like the production in it, and I really understand the point of the energy, but Joyner Lucas's vocals on here just aren't strong enough despite how hard he is trying. He is trying. I'm not gonna knock him for that. He's giving his best effort when it comes to giving a vocal performance and having energy on a track, but it just falls so short in my opinion. And then Mystikal's verse comes off more like a Busta Rhymes impression than it does an authentic inflection within his voice. I mean, I think it's cool. Maybe that's his actual voice. Another example of having a bunch of energy on this thing is Winter Blues, where Joyner goes into an incredible amount of details about what he would have to do, all the things he was willing to do in terms of being desperate in order to support himself and his family, saying that I need to do these things because I'm in a certain position. It's nothing personal. I don't want to do it, but I gotta. No matter what the risk or the cost, he needs it, no matter who it belongs to. We got tracks on here like Way to Go. We got tracks on here like I Need More, which I Need More comes off again like a Big Shawn impersonation. and Way to Go comes off like an 808s and Heartbreak from Kanye kind of vibe to it. The entire song, his voice is layered with these effects that really have no deep meaning. They don't connect you to the song or anything like that. It's just the sound. And I might not have such a problem with that if Joyner was actually saying something that got me to connect to the track or maybe want to come back to it, but he just isn't. The tracks on here where he actually does that are tracks like Lullaby, Forever, a track where he gives a tribute to his child and lets the child know all the feelings and the anxiety and the pressure that was going through his mind before fatherhood came into play, talking about how he wished the mother would have aborted him, saying that he held resentment in his heart to some degree when the child actually came because the mother had a chance to abort him. It's a very open and honest track that I think a lot of people don't really explore that. They kind of repress those emotions and try to hold them away, but it ends up coming back on the child later. Lullaby is another good track on here where Joyner talks about the relationship of losing touch with his mother and saying how they're nowhere near as close as they used to be. It discusses and kind of sheds a little bit of light on her issues with being a parent, being a good mother, and even struggling with drugs to some degree, because there is a line in here where Lucas talks about having to shoot or inject his mother's arm and then go and lock all the doors. He also has a track on here where he talks about not having any role model. Just like you, he's actually rapping and chastising this male in the beginning of his verse, and then on the second verse he's chastising this woman, and I'm like, wait, who is he talking about? And it comes to me that maybe he's talking about his parents and saying how they both done things that he would never want to do when he gets to their age. And then once you kind of realize that he's rapping about this and he's talking about his parents and not wanting to be like them, he actually has a bunch of children, I think, in the background to kind of add to his vocals that again push the idea forward that the kids today may not have that role model or that figure that they can look up to. Now, I like the point of this track, but I don't think it comes across as too empathetic to people being human instead of just parents, because Joyner is talking about how the people that he's referencing are so judgmental, but at the same time judging them for the things that they've done wrong in their life. Then things just start getting funky. Like Just Because, where Joyner is pretty much crooning in the worst way possible over this girl that he's infatuated with, because again, I don't know if this is the girl that he's referencing from the beginning tracks. Clearly he's got an on and off relationship with her. And this track is just so bad when it comes to any type of emotional attachment, is because of the lack of emotion that Joyner actually shows with his own voice. I mean, you're not getting me to care about this girl in the slightest because you sound so unenthusiastic in trying to win her back. If I was trying to win a girl back, why on earth would my vocal delivery sound like,
promise you won't change up just because I know you work in the morning, but tonight, girl, we should stay.
His voice lacks any kind of sexiness, any kind of swagger, any type of emotion. It's just like no way in hell am I going back to you, dude. And essentially this track is about trying to rekindle an old flame, trying to say we can make this work. Let's start over. Let's try again. But who would want to when it doesn't really come across as if you care in this song? I don't know why he spends another 20 seconds putting this girl on the voicemail, as if the listener is gonna have some deeper connection to her or him after listening to it. Then the weirdest part about this track is he's got his grandma's voicemail on the same song. What? You're talking about getting back together with this girl and all the things sexually you're gonna do to her at the same time, and then you got your grandma's voice on here? How does that work? Now, I can spend a lot of time talking about these tracks because there is a little bit of a mixed feeling in regards to all of them, but the one that I can agree with any Joyner Lucas fan on that is the best on this entire album, in my opinion, is Keep It 100. Now, on this track, he starts off with kind of an Eminem-esque voice tone, so you can tell that he's about to start telling a story of kind of how life is connected through this just $100 bill. Now, the story starts off where this guy goes to a strip club and he sees this woman, and he's kind of being the asshole. He's kind of being that one guy that's like, okay, I can get this girl as long as I flash my money in front of her face. In order to kind of prove that, he writes his number down saying, your man can't do what I can, gives her the money, she takes it, does some things with it, snorts some coke with it, takes it to a liquor store, buys some, small amenity. And Joyner actually does a really, really great job of telling the story from each person's perspective. Like, you can actually feel like he is the person that he's rapping from because he's doing such a great job of narrating it, having references like even to the pastor when he says God is good after he finishes getting head from this prostitute. The girl, she takes it to the cash register. The guy, the cashier, he looks at it, he's like, yo, you got a number on here? She's like, clearly out of it. He's like, yeah, whatever. Immediately after that, he gets robbed, and then Joyner gives this strong vocal performance from the perspective of the robber, saying, if you love your life, turn around. You don't want to see this. I'm not trying to kill you over something stupid. Although I love this track, it seems like a very strong force trying to put this $100 in other people's hands. Like, this literally could have stopped right after the robber, but then he just keeps it going. And I mean that in the sense of Joyner saying that this guy wanted to repent for his sins, so he ends up giving that same $100 bill that he got from the cashier to the collection plate at his church the next day, which in my opinion makes no sense. I know 10% of your income goes to the church, but can you consider it income when you just rob somebody for it? Assuming that you are going by that logic of 10%. How much money was in the register? Because registers at liquor stores I doubt contain at the very least $1,000. You might be lucky to get a couple $100 out of a liquor store cash register. So you mean to tell me the guy who robbed this cashier said, you know what? Let me rob this dude, let me get right with God right after, give 10% of my earnings, because I worked hard for this, and I'm gonna give it to the church the next day. Or maybe he feels so bad for taking the money that he decides, you know what, I need to give a decent portion of what I just earned so I can go to sleep at night. That's some strong dedication. Then we get a crooked pastor taking the money from the collection plate to satisfy his sexual desires by going to go see this prostitute, who then gives him head, then gets out, and how much she regrets it, and how much she doesn't want to live her life like this. Again, the story is told beautifully. You can connect to every part of it. You can see the story as it's happening. It's great storytelling. The best part of this track is when the pimp smacks this prostitute, and then the instrumental gets distorted to show you or to signify that this girl just had the wind knocked out of her. Continues from his perspective. He gambles it, loses it. The guy who wins it from the gambling happens to drop it from jumping up and down. Like, I know you're gonna be happy you won $100, but you're not jumping up and down in the hood. Drops his wallet, and get this, it stays there for 3 whole weeks. Really? You mean to tell me you live in this neighborhood where all these things are going on, there's a wallet on the ground, and it stays there for 3 weeks? Nobody came across it. That's what you're telling me? I don't know. I think it's endearing. I think it's funny. I think the track is great. I think it's beautifully produced. I think Joyner tells the perspective of these people brilliantly, and it doesn't come across long-winded, but like I said, it does come across a little forced, because this thing could have stopped after the cashier got robbed. That's another strength of Joyner Lucas. He does a really great job of telling a story. He does a really great job of giving different perspectives. Another example of that on here is another favorite track of mine, which he labels Literally, which he has a conversation with his dick. He's arguing and going back and forth with it and saying, you are the worst part of me, you get me into the worst situations, and his junk is arguing back with him saying, hey, you don't know what it's like being down here in this hot place. When I finally get out of here, I want to let loose. This is a brilliant track. He's trying to explain to this woman, hey, I'm gonna be with you, but if something happens to ruin this relationship, blame him, not me. It's kind of victim blaming in a sense, but it is very funny. It's a track on here that pretty much any guy can relate to. And then we get to the point in the song where he's getting his test results back, and this nurse or this doctor is calling him back to let him know, hey, you got a lot of stuff wrong with you. You turned up positive for a lot of these problems. And then it goes into Joyner calling the suicide hotline, which to me, it can be kind of taken 2 ways. You can say that Joyner Lucas is doing all this and then he finally finds out he's got a bunch of STDs and then he's ready to kill himself because he found out about this. Or you could say that since it leads into the next track, the next subject matter for the song that Joyner Lucas is about to talk about, that's why the ending of the track kind of went that way. I think the fact that you can take it 2 different ways is great to me. The suicide track on here where Joyner talks about, and I guess he's talking to his fans, maybe he's talking to you, like, the world wouldn't be better off without you. I know you think it's over, but I'm still gonna make an effort to kind of get you out of this dark depression. And that's kind of summing up the entire album. I mean, the last track on here was kind of weak until we got to Joyner Lucas's part where he's talking about being lonely in the beginning of the track, and then he gets a call from this chick saying that she needs him, she needs his company. Then he shows up and he's acting like she's his real girlfriend or something like that. It's actually kind of funny. The track doesn't end in any kind of moving or motivational ways to kind of wrap up the album or kind of, you know, explain the theme of it. It just kind of ends. Look What You Made Me Do. Joyner on this track is just, he's just bad on this track in my opinion. He sounds like Eminem, a mix of Eminem and Drake. Stefflon Don is the real starlight here. Her flow, her accent, her delivery on this track make it a joy to listen to, not to mention the instrumental in the background. It just makes this a certified banger. This also might be one of Joyner's more elusive kind of stalker tracks. He calls her a teen. This girl with a British accent answers the phone and she knows it's Joyner because he calls her, but he's not saying anything. Joyner Lucas on this thing does a really good job of trying to tell a story, trying to tell his own story in as interesting of a way as he knows how. I just think some of the tracks are just way too long. Some of them come across as just cringy, like Seeing Through You, like an Ultrasound. Just, no, don't say that again, bro. You're better than that. And some of the times on here, you know, although his lyrical and vocal performance and his flow is really cool, he doesn't really say that much when it comes to his verses. Like, it just seems like he's rapping so fast to cover up the fact that sometimes he's not actually saying anything about anything. Getting to the length of these tracks, it can be a turnoff having to listen to a 5-7 minute song at times, and there is a lot of them on here. I wouldn't necessarily say the beats are too impressive. Like, I do get the point of explaining this from the point of view from Joyner. They're not going to be that extravagant, but I do think some of the beats on here could have been a little bit more interesting. And then there's some times where he plays with the instrumental and tries to show it off as if this is some vibrant, great track, and I'm like, it's not. You can actually end this thing right now. One thing I want to kind of commend him for is valuing real rap and taking it to the point where he feels the need to rap on every single track. Like, there isn't a track on here where he's not rapping. The best way I can explain Joyner on this album, if you don't really take away a message from it, is like a dog that's barking for no reason. He comes off very aggressive on a lot of these tracks. He's very moving. He's very passionate with a lot of what he's saying in a lot of these tracks. But again, like I said, just like a dog barking for no reason, you're looking at it like, why are you barking? On some of the tracks, like I said before, it's ridiculously long. Some of the tracks being on here just to stretch the song out, just to end up playing an unrelated voicemail. People hype this thing up to be album of the year, and it's definitely not that. I think it's way too long. I think it's very long-winded. Ironic, because this video is probably going to be longer than it needs to be. You might even have to take a break when listening to this thing, because it's like, dog, like, what are you talking about, fam? Like, I love the fact that this dude's valuing rapping as a skill, and you need to do it in order to make good rap music. But you need to have something substantial on every track. Like, he repeats himself a lot on this thing. Before I continue going on forever about this album, yes, it is good. I see the good in it. I see how somebody could like it. I also see how somebody could hate it. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a 6 out of 10 on this thing. It was a good album. It was decent, but it's not crazy. It's not groundbreaking. The fears that I had before this album did show up to some degree, but there are tracks on here where I was pleasantly surprised. Joyner Lucas, you did your thing. Definitely enjoyed the project, but it's not something I could come back to and listen to the entire thing. Thank you guys for watching. It's been Shawn C. Hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, go ahead and leave a like rating down below. Let me know what your favorite track is on this project, if you have one at all. And yeah, did you think it was long? Did you think it was too much? Pause. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.